Looks good. You ready? Okay.
With the glasses in the front right here? No. No, I don't think so. I had, oh my gosh, now I'm gonna forget his name. Oh, I can see his face. Locke. Dennis Locke.
Yeah. I loved him as a teacher.
He was great. He was a great teacher.
He was great. Yeah, Mr. Locke was awesome.
Yeah, I looked forward to his class every day.
I took him for poli-sci and I took him for legislative seminar.
Yep.
That was the greatest class ever.
I don't think they had that when I was there.
They had one of my sons for that.
Really?
Chad Reisner taught it for a long time.
It was in the fall. It was only in the fall or
Weird.
spring, and it was 5th hour or 6th hour because you basically left when session
I
was
used
in
to
and went
see
over
him,
to the
yeah,
Capitol.
yeah.
It was
I used to
great.
see the groups, but for some reason, I don't know why I didn't take that class.
Anybody who did spring sport couldn't do it.
No, I didn't play spring sport. Who knows?
Okay, so we're going to begin. Welcome to tonight's candidate forum for candidates seeking seats on the Jefferson City School Board on the April 5th ballot. I'm Gary Castor, managing editor of the Jefferson City News Tribune, and I'll serve as a moderator of tonight's forum. I want to take this opportunity to thank the city for the use of the council chambers for the forum, as well as their assistance in live streaming it. Some of our audience is here in the council chambers with us, and some are watching at home. 4 candidates are seeking 2 seats on the school board. Prior to tonight, they were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, a round of questions, and then a closing statement. For each of these segments, they'll be given 2 minutes to speak. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, News Tribune's community engagement editor. She will serve as timekeeper for their responses. So let me introduce the candidates here tonight. On my left is Erica Leonard. She's a lifelong resident of Jefferson City. She majored in political science at Lincoln University and has 2 sons in the school district. Leonard primarily deals with the state budget as a contract lobbyist with Barget and Associates, where she has worked for 16 years. She previously worked with the Jefferson City Schools Foundation for 8 years. Next to her is Mark Ellinger, who grew up in Jefferson City and graduated from Jefferson City High School in 1985. He went to the University of Missouri for accounting and then a law degree before coming back to Jefferson City to work for the state auditor. Ellinger became a private practice attorney in 1999. He and his wife have 2 children who graduated from JCHS. Ellinger has previously served as presiding commissioner and was on the YMCA board and the Chamber of Commerce board. He's on the board of Capital Region Medical Center and the Boy Scouts Executive Board. Next to Mark is Ann Blumke-Warren. Sorry, I got my orders out here. Ann Blumke-Warren. She's been in Jefferson City for more than 20 years. She went to high school in Mexico, Missouri, and later attended the University of Missouri. She's a grant writer and manager for the Missouri State Public Health Lab. And she's worked for several state agencies dealing with poverty mitigation and social programs. She has also been involved in the Chamber of Commerce Young Professionals Group. She has a daughter who attends Thorpe Gordon Elementary School. And to my right is Adam Grisham. He grew up in Jefferson City and graduated from Jefferson City High School in 1993. He attended the United States Naval Academy and worked as an intelligence officer in the Marine Corps. Then came back to Jefferson City in 2005 and began his career in state government. Today, he's Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe's chief of staff. His wife teaches at Lewis and Clark Middle School, and his oldest graduated from JCHS, while his younger 2 children attend Immaculate Conception and Helias Catholic High School. The order for the opening and closing statements were determined before the forum by drawing lots. So we're going to begin our opening statements with Erica.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for attending, and those of you that are watching online, welcome. I am running for JC Schools District Board of Education because I am a mom of 2 boys that currently attend JC Schools. I have one at Lewis and Clark and one at Cedar Hill Elementary, and I care a lot about their education. I want to continue to see this community grow, and by doing so, we have to make sure that we are educating our students every single day to exceed excellence. We have come a long way in improving and making sure our academics continue to rise, but I know that there's much more work to be done. And I am grateful for this opportunity, and I am hopeful that you will elect me as your next JC Schools Board of Education member.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you, everybody, for attending and everyone online for watching. My name's Mark Ellinger, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm running for the Jefferson City School Board for one reason. We need to get back to being an excellent school district. I graduated from Jefferson City High School in 1985, and at that time, we were the best school district in the state. We were an attraction. People moved to Jefferson City because they wanted to be in the Jefferson City School District. We have to get back to that. The way to get back to that's simple. We need to have a very transparent process on the school board. We need to make sure that folks are able to see what's going on and be able to give input on any issue to school board members. Second, we need to have discipline in the classroom. We need to start at an early age and explain to younger children and to their parents and their guardians what's expected of students, being in the class, not being disruptive, and having that proceed through so we don't have to deal with disruptions and other problems later in the education process. Third, we have to have great teachers, because great teachers means excellence in education. If you have transparency, you have discipline, you have those great teachers, you have excellence, and that brings Jefferson City High School, Capital City High School, and the entire Jefferson City School District back to where it was, the best in the state. And that's why I'd ask for your vote for the Jefferson City School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Blemke Warren. I am running for school board. I hope you vote for me on April 5th. I am running because I am personally invested in Jefferson City Schools for the next 8 years because my daughter is a 4th grader at Thorpe Gordon Elementary, and she is a student at a school that is pretty often overlooked in our district. She is a student at a school that has been overlooked with facility improvements. I would like to be on the board to make sure that facilities are not prioritized based on where the school is and what part of town. I want to make sure that everything is distributed fairly among the town. I want to make sure that students, teachers, parents have a voice in our community, and I want to make sure that every family is proud of the schools where their students attend. And I am proud of my school, and I want to be the voice for parents of all students and all teachers in our district and make our district as great as I know that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you, Gary, and for everybody being here tonight. I appreciate it. I want to thank Erica and Mark and Ann for doing this. It takes something just to, at least I'm persuaded that it takes something just to put your name out here on this, and so I appreciate them all doing that. Again, my name's Adam Gresham. I'm running for the simple reason that there's a delta in between our current performance and what it actually is and what it could be. And quite frankly, the difference in that delta in terms of history, math, science, reading, writing, personal responsibility, personal behavior has caused a lot of taxpayers in this community to lose confidence in the district. And I want to run to restore that. And I believe that the way to do that, my campaign is based upon five simple pillars. First of which is accountability, all the way down, starting with the school board. Discipline, we need to instill discipline, get it back into the classroom. We need to expect excellence in all that we do, set a high standard. My background is as a Marine, and I know firsthand that whenever you set the bar high and you set expectations high, people tend to rise to that. If you set them low, people are going to lower themselves to that. Transparency, I don't think I said transparency. Transparency all the way across the board. That starts with the school board. Right now, it is very, very difficult. There's a perception that it's very difficult, and I echo that perception, that it's very, very difficult for taxpayers, community members to be heard by the board. I think we need to fix that. Last piece is, I want to stop any of these divisive things out there, such as critical race theory, that are defining people other than, that are defining people in certain categories. I believe every student has the ability to learn. Every student should have the opportunity. We need to set standards and hold everybody accountable equally.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to start with our questions. We'll start with Mark. The seats you're seeking are nonpartisan, and you don't have to disclose your political affiliations. But for your constituents, political affiliation helps them understand how you would govern, even at the school board level. So how would you describe your political leanings?
Thank you, Gary, for the question. I think that's easy. I'm a Republican. I'm a lifelong Republican. I've been a Republican literally since birth. My parents were Republicans. I served as presiding commissioner for 8 years as a Republican. And I think that's important because it does bring a philosophy. It brings a philosophy of expecting accountability from government. It brings a philosophy of smaller and limited taxation. And it brings a philosophy of understanding that the community and the constituents are the customers of government. Government is not in charge. Government is a means by which we pool to try to address issues in the community, and we need to listen to the community. So we need to have transparent meetings. We need to make sure people can talk about that. I think that being a Republican is really important. It's more important in today's world than it perhaps has ever been, and I'm proud to wear that on my sleeve, and I make no apologies for being a Republican.
All right, Ann, same question.
This is a nonpartisan race, and I am running, part of my platform is that I am rejecting any partisan politics in this race. I don't want to adhere to either party. I think my personal national political leanings don't matter in this race. I feel party affiliation has no place in student government, or in public schools, or in city government like this, and I want to just leave that out of it entirely.
All right. Adam.
I'm a conservative and I'm a Republican, and I think that those are important because that does give insight in terms of the values that I hold. That's not all inclusive, and that doesn't define me being a conservative Republican. I'm also a man of faith. I'm a family man. So there's many other things that define me. But it is important, I think, for people to know that perspective. I'm a social conservative and I'm a fiscal conservative. And so that is my perspective, and that's the worldview that I will bring to the board. It is a nonpartisan position. I have no doubt that there will be some Republicans that may not vote for me. I'm also hopeful there'll be some Democrats that do vote for me. But I do think it's important to put that out there because it does help frame their perspective and how I'll approach situations, whether it relates to discipline, whether it relates to accountability, whether it relates to job performance and supervision. All of those things are important, and they will all be a hallmark. If the taxpayers of Jefferson City decide to put me on the board, those will be things that I'll focus on, and they can understand that from a political perspective what my background is as well.
Thank you. Erica?
I'm a moderate conservative. Some would like to prefer to call me a centrist, I think. And honestly, I think that makes me an even better fit for this nonpartisan position. I would love to just focus on what the teachers need, what students need, and keep everything else out of it, weighing all decisions based on the true elements of what it will take to get us back to be the preferred district of this community.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to our next question. We'll start with Ann. The Jefferson City School Board has hired a new superintendent. Should the decision have waited until the new board was seated, and what would be the priorities you would want the new superintendent to pursue?
I don't know that they should have waited. I do think the time frame was very short. I have no opinion yet on the decision that was made, but I think the decision was probably a good decision. As far as priorities, I think that we should make sure that our superintendent is a champion for our public schools and wants to make sure that we are spending our money on students and making sure that our students are achieving at the highest possible level and focusing on outcomes before anything else. And that should be job number one of the superintendent, advocating for our schools, advocating for our teachers, and making sure that we are spending our money wisely.
Okay. Adam, same question.
Sure. Thank you, Gary. I would have loved to have been a part of the decision-making for hiring a new superintendent. I wasn't. And the board that is elected now is empowered to do that, and so they should not have waited. If they have the right candidate and the person that they believe is the right person for that job, I have no expectation they would wait for an election. What I'm hoping that the new superintendent will focus on is back to the basics. The job of the Jefferson City Public Schools is to educate students. And we do that by going back to the fundamentals. We focus on math, science, reading, writing, history, civics, personal responsibility, and personal behavior. And if the new superintendent focuses on those things, I think it's going to put the district on the right path to success, and it's going to help to close that gap between expectations and reality that we're seeing right now.
All right. Erica, same question.
The timeline that the current board handled with the new hire of the superintendent, I think, was a little fast, but I think it worked for the current board. I know that we all probably up here would have liked to have a seat at that table, but what I would consider moving forward if elected, the board sets expectations for that in superintendent for all outcomes. And I'm hopeful that the two individuals that are elected to become new school board members would get that adequate time face-to-face to share our expectations and whatever they may be for that individual, so that it's not just the old running the show, that we also have a view within the two new positions that are going to be added April 5th. Otherwise, I think the board is doing their job at selecting what they feel is the best candidate and have done a good job handling that.
Okay. Mark.
No, I think that with an election rapidly approaching, it would have been advantageous for the board to have waited and had an opportunity for the new school board members to participate in that decision. Ultimately, the superintendent is going to be working for a 7-person board, 2 of whom are sitting up here on the stage. So it would be good to be able to have some input on that. As far as the decision was made, I mean, that's been done now, and it's time to look forward. I think the important thing to remember is the school board sets policy, and the superintendent carries out that policy. I think it's very important that we have a superintendent who understands that's the hierarchy of how we, as the citizens of the Jefferson City School District, vote to elect our officials. The elected officials set the policy, the administration carries it out. I think the new superintendent needs to be focused on discipline in the classroom. I think that's really important. And I think it's critical that we focus on how to spend less money on administration and more money incentivizing great teachers, because that's really where the crux is. Great teachers result in great education, which turns out excellence for our children and our entire community. You find the money through the existing funds that are there by looking at cutting administration and finding savings and putting that into incentives for great teachers and for training to those teachers who need to be brought up to the standard. That's the only way we can have excellence in education, and I hope that the superintendent will carry out that policy, and certainly if I'm elected to the school board, that's a policy I will be advocating to have the superintendent follow.
All right. Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Adam. Springfield schools tie their superintendent's salary and senior administrator pay to performance. They receive a base pay and only earn more if students and teachers succeed academically and improve. As a board member, would you bring this practice to Jefferson City and explain your answer?
I'm not sure that one person on a board can bring that to Jefferson City. I would tell you that I would be very, very interested in that conversation. I come from a world that performance is what matters. And my background is performance what matters. In the Marine Corps, in all my job work performance is what matters. And so I would love to see that. I think that part of the way that we go about getting good teachers and good administrators is that we reward that good performance. The district at the board level knows when the superintendent is doing well, and you can see that manifested, whether that's in test scores, whether that's enthusiasm. Similarly, I believe that principals know what teachers are doing well. We absolutely have to find a way to keep those great teachers, incentivize them to keep doing even better, and we absolutely ought to reward people for exceptional performance, whether that's at the superintendent or down into the classroom. I would love to see how Springfield is doing that, and I would be very, very interested in the conversation. Certainly, just from a theoretical perspective here, it's something that intrigues me greatly.
Thank you. Erica?
Gary, if I heard you right, the question was, would we or I be interested, if elected, in engaging in a conversation about the Springfield model of tying our superintendent's salary to performance outcomes?
Correct. Superintendents and senior administrators.
Okay. I would love to learn more about this model. I am not as familiar as I should be. Of what it would take to do something like that here. I know that performance and outcomes is obviously one of the biggest tasks at hand, that we need to see everything, just simple reading, writing alone need to improve so many miles ahead. And I think engaging in that conversation to see if that's something that the board as a collective whole would consider to move forward could be an interesting conversation, that maybe it could be a way that we could put some pressure on making sure our outcomes are continuing to increase.
Okay. Mark?
So, like many up here, I'm not intimately familiar with the terms of the Springfield pay proposals. However, I think that incentive pay is always a benefit. Incentive pay rewards people for success. And that's what we need. The way you turn a school district around, the way you get excellence in education is incenting success. So I would very much like to see the superintendent, administrators, I'd like to see teachers incentivized for excellent performance. If they deliver above average results in a classroom, if they provide excellent results in a school as a principal or across the full district, there should be a reward for doing that. And it's not just a pat on the back. It should be the way to incentivize folks with extra pay, extra opportunities for training. I think this is a great way of looking to instill it from a top down. If you have incentive pay and you look for great ways to incentivize teachers and you don't have incentive pay at the top, folks at the top don't have the incentive to want to deliver those excellent results. If you have incentives across the board, then everybody's rowing in the same direction. Better results makes everybody's pay packet bigger, and better results means better education. That's what our community needs.
All right. Ann, same question.
Again, I don't know a lot about this program, but in thinking about this, and I had the benefit of having a little more time than maybe some of the other candidates. Honestly, I don't think I'm interested in a system with a base pay and then one-time incentives. I would be more interested in incentivizing with base pay increases that are permanent. I think a better incentive would be pay increases for performance. If our administrators are improving outcomes, we should increase their pay permanently. I don't know that doing one-time bonuses all the time, like instituting an entire system where we just are giving out one-time bonuses all the time if they are performing well, is necessarily something that I would be interested in. No, I think I would rather do permanent incentivized pay scales.
Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper into compensation issues. So we're going to start this one with Erica. Do you believe teachers are sufficiently compensated? And explain your answer.
I think the district does one thing very well, and that is teacher starting pay. We do better than lots of districts in our surrounding communities. However, it's never enough. I think there's lots of room there to improve. We see a proposal by the governor right now being considered that would increase starting teacher pay. And while we're already surpassing that level and doing a good job there, I think that shows that the compression factor that will come into play and that we need to do better continuing to pay teachers that have been invested in this district, that are showing good performance. And starting teacher pay to attract quality educators, making sure that we're hiring the best that we can.
All right, thank you. Mark, same question.
So teacher pay, I think, can be increased, and it should be increased for great teachers. I think we should look at incentives. I think, and I agree with Ann, that incentives should become permanent. There shouldn't be one-time bonuses that disappear. They go to the base package because that pushes the teacher to be better every time. That's how you increase pay and you get results at the same time. A simple pay increase across the board, flat for everybody, doesn't incentivize anyone to do more or to do less. It does nothing. It's a flat dollar amount. When you incentivize based upon performance, you get the opportunity for teachers to say, I can make more by working and getting results in my classroom, and if they need training, they can get training for it. So I firmly believe we need to increase pay for great teachers. And I think we should look at incentives. I think we should look at ways to find savings in administration. We should look at what our existing budget is. It's an enormous budget we spend every year for the school district. We should find that money. We should put it into incentive packages for teachers.
All right, Ann, same question.
I think the question was, do I think teachers should be paid more?
To be more accurate, do you believe teachers are sufficiently compensated? And explain your answer.
Okay, on the whole, no. I think, as Erica said, in Jefferson City, starting pay for teachers is probably adequate. But yes, with the compression, we are not incentivizing by doing periodic pay increases as well as incentivized pay increases. I think, that's almost universal now, I think, with all jobs. Nobody's getting raises like they used to. But our teachers they're performing a service that is unmatched in the community. If we don't invest in our teachers, there is no one coming up behind them that can perform the service that they perform every day. So we absolutely have to make sure that we are attracting the best, not just to the profession, but here in Jefferson City. We have to make sure that we are keeping the best here in Jefferson City to make sure that Jefferson City is the best district in the state.
All right, Adam, same question.
Sure. Thank you, Gary. I'm going to go back to what I believe the first priority of the public schools is, which is to educate students. Every good idea that the board has, every good idea that a principal has, every good idea that an outside entity has to be implemented ultimately at the end of the day by teachers. Right now, there are lots of good ideas that we're trying to force teachers to implement, and there's a myriad of extra things that we are having them do, and that is often at the expense of what that first priority is, which is to educate students. That needs to be our first priority, and we need to reward teachers and pay teachers for doing that. Excellent teachers should absolutely be paid more, but part of the compensation package that you're talking about is, and the way to keep and retain teachers is to hire good ones and to trust them to do the work in the classroom. I may be unique in this building in that I have one of my high school teachers sitting out here in the audience. I don't know what his salary was, but I could tell you one thing, he made an impact on my life that was beyond whatever compensation he was making. I talked to him earlier tonight, and so I want to make sure that we're hiring good teachers, we're paying them well, we are giving bonuses to good ongoing bonuses that become a base salary to good teachers, and I want to make sure that we're empowering our teachers to focus on the first things first, which is teaching students in the classroom.
All right, thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mark. There's been a lot of talk recently on making staff makeup be more representative of the students that they teach. But minority teachers are an incredibly small subset of an educator pool that's quickly shrinking nationally. How would you ensure our district is competitive in recruiting the most impactful teachers that we can employ?
Well, I think the first thing we have to remember is great teachers are not of one skin type or one gender or one ethnicity or one religion. Great teachers are great teachers, and that's what we have to focus on. We have to focus on good pay to bring teachers in. We have to focus on an incentive package that makes great teachers want to stay. And we need to go sell that to teachers that, look, if you're good at what you do, you can come here and the sky's the limit on how much money you can make. You can have an enormously successful career from a fiscal perspective and still have enormous impact and effect upon your students and the next generations that come thereafter. I think that's the most important thing we have to focus on. In the end, mission of the school district is to teach students and to have students that are productive citizens in our community, in our state, in our nation. And the way we do that is by getting great teachers and not saying that we have to look at a particular segregation of ideas or a particular ethnicity or a particular race or a particular religion. There are religious schools for folks that want to do that. There are all sorts of other options for that. We need the best teachers. And the way to get the best teachers is to have a package that makes them want to come here, and we get great results. And when you have that success, you get more teachers that want to come, and you get more opportunity. And that inherently brings a mix of all sorts of teachers of all different backgrounds, which inevitably results in a better education across the board.
All right. Ann, same question.
I think first and foremost, representation matters. If we have a certain percentage of students of color and black students, we should do our best to make sure we're working toward having a more equal representation of black and teachers of color. Jefferson City is unique in that we have a historically black college in our town. We should be working to partner with them and have some kind of career pathway for teachers to come through Lincoln into our district. I don't see any reason that we can't make that partnership happen. I would like to see some kind of effort made to work towards something like that. I understand that what we want is the best. I don't see why we can't have both. I feel like when we say, we don't want to focus on this percentage and this percentage because we want the best, I feel like there is, and I know it's completely unintended, I feel like there's an implication that teachers of color aren't the best. But I think representation matters. Black students need to see black teachers. They need to see people in leadership that look like them. There will be better outcomes for those students if they see people that look like them. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, same question.
Thank you, Gary. I'm far more concerned with the quality of the teacher in the classroom than I am in making sure that we exactly hit or match percentages with demographic percentages. That's not to say it's not important. That's a noble goal, and there's no reason that we can't aspire to that. But again, back to the focus of the school district, which is to teach kids. I'm far more concerned with performance. How do we retain good teachers? We need to hire them first off, which is an important thing. We need to get them, but part of the way that you do that is you make the district a place that people want to come to. That's not just compensation, that's a component too. But teachers need to be trusted to go into the classroom, to be given the freedom to teach their subject, to teach it according to the curriculum and according to state standards. They need to have the freedom to motivate students and to make learning exciting. And then they need to be able to manage their classroom with effective discipline. Again, my background is as a Marine. I tell this everywhere I go. I have no expectation that a teacher runs a classroom like a Marine Corps boot camp, but I have every expectation that a teacher can walk into a classroom, they can have standards, they can set expectations for behavior, and then whenever they enforce those expectations for behavior equally to all students, they have the rightful expectation that the administration is going to back them up. So the best way to get teachers, make compensation an important thing. Teachers don't work for free. They shouldn't work for free. But also make this a district where they want to come to. You do that by creating that culture, empowering them to go out and teach, and then having an administration that supports them.
Okay, thank you. Erica?
Diversifying our educators across our district is a great goal to have. I think it would help us to better diversify our educators to reflect our student body and our community. I don't want to see us have a goal, though, that will limit us from hiring the best educators out there. And somehow we need to have a better conversation of how we can do more to attract the best educators, but also how can we add in that component of making sure that our educators do reflect our student body so that those students can look up to individuals that look just like them.
All right, thank you. So Ann, we'll start with you on the next question. The district has made a commitment to review change school boundaries every 3 years. Do you support that plan? If no, explain your answer. If yes, share the priorities of how you would make that decision. For instance, dollars required to implement, the social effect on students impacted, maintaining a precise socioeconomic composition with the district, effect on teachers and support staff, desire of community leaders. I mean, you define it. So how would you make that decision if you support it?
I do support it. I think that none of the rules should be hard and fast. I don't think it should, I think socioeconomic status is probably one of the most important factors, but hitting a mark every time should not be like the hard and fast rule. I don't think, a percent here or there is going to make that big a difference if it means upending 200 kids from a school again. I think we've all learned that no one enjoys this process, and if it can be avoided, we should. However, we cannot let it go 20 years again and have it cause the kind of issues in the community that it caused this time. So I think at a minimum, we need to look at it every 3 years. That doesn't mean we need to change something every 3 years, but I do think it needs to be looked at, and I think we need to take all of those things into account. We need to, if socioeconomic status is going to be off by, if it's going to change by 5%, but we're going to have to move 600 children from their schools, no. I don't know that it's going to be worth it this time. Maybe in 3 years we see how that goes, and then if it's still trending that direction, then we have to make a change. So I think it's just worth seeing how our trends are.
Okay. Adam, same question.
Thanks, Gary. This is an interesting question because it certainly gets a lot of discussion within the community, and rightly so. I am under the impression, and I will be glad to stand corrected, is that the basis for looking at this every 3 years was to take a look at building capacities and to make sure that we're not having 40 students in one classroom at one school and 20 students at another. And so that, in my opinion, should be the driving factor at looking at it. If we're looking at population in terms of capacity there, the next thing needs to be the continuity. To force a child to switch schools in the middle of their, whether it be elementary school, middle school, or high school, I think that that should be avoided to the greatest extent possible. And so I would like to see, I don't have a problem with the review every 3 years, I guess, so long as we're looking at it for the right things. The one thing that I don't think that we ought to be looking at is just so that we can make sure from a socioeconomic or demographic standpoint. That is not a reason to upend students from one school to another one just to hit some sort of number or ratio. And so I'm all about looking at it from a population and facilities perspective. I want to have those parents and those students' best interest in mind for sure. I don't want to uproot them just for a reason for a reason that is considerably more subjective than space.
All right. Erica, same question.
So if I understand right, your question was the boundary lines happening every 3 years, is that something that I would support?
Yes.
So I think boundary lines is one of the toughest conversations I have myself been involved in the committee. I think that was maybe 6 years ago, 5 possible. One of the hardest tasks at hand. And while I think it's extremely important that the conversation is routinely had, if that's on a 3-year timeline, maybe it needs to be 3, 2. I think it's a process that needs to continue. It needs to have the most minimal impact on students. From what I've seen in the most recent boundary line changes is that we have a very deep concern of keeping all of our schools even on economics and capacity. I think both of those are a factor in helping our community grow, keeping all of our schools as even as possible without moving tons every single year, and having that emotional impact on those students will help us grow. I just want to make sure that we're including the right third party, if you will, third party contractor that helps us navigate that process. From what I've heard, maybe we could do better in that area of helping us navigate the really tough conversation of how to stay on task of keeping all of our schools not overflowing, not 4 or 5 trailers here or there, and even as best as possible so that we don't ever have a have or have not situation across our community.
Okay. Mark, same question.
Thanks, Gary. I think setting an arbitrary 3-year period is kind of a silly number to come up with. I think you should look at the balance of, are the buildings full? Are they overcrowded? Or are they not? I think that's a factor. That being said, I think looking at boundary lines is a difficult situation. We went through it as a family. When Pioneer Trail was built and Southwest Elementary School was turned into an EER building, an early childhood building, my oldest son had gone all the way through West Elementary School. My youngest son was in 4th grade at West Elementary School and was required to go to Pioneer Trail for his last 2 years. That was a very difficult transition. You go from a school that you've always been in where you know the teachers, you know all the kids, and a small segment of kids are plucked up and moved to a different school. That's a challenge. I think when we look at how we draw district lines, keeping families together and that consistency in the school offers real value in education to the student because there's no disruption, and to the school because it offers an opportunity for the school itself to have some continuity. We should always be looking at cost in any decision we make. The school board ultimately are stewards of taxpayers' dollars. If we do not look at cost, we're failing in one of our primary functions as elected officials. We should look at proximity. Forcing a student to get on a bus to go across town when they can walk to a school it is a negative impact to the bottom line of the school district. It's a negative impact to the student and their family, and it's a negative impact to the school district. Kids that can walk to school, I think that's a great opportunity, and they should have, neighborhood schools are great. In the end, this is about quality. If we have excellent schools across the board, people will be comfortable no matter where their kids go, and that's in the end what we should focus on.
Okay, thank you. Adam, we'll start you with the next question. The district received a large number of degrading comments directed at schools in the 65101 zip code when it sought comments about the potential boundary line changes. What are your thoughts about the comments as well as the expressed perceptions that some schools and parts of the district are inferior?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I have a wife that teaches at one of those schools. I know how she feels about those students. I know that many of those teachers were quite ruffled at the comments. And so I know the passion she brings to it, and I know the passion that other teachers bring to it. They love those kids, they want what's best for those kids, and they pour their heart and their minds and their souls into those kids. Here's one thing I will tell you. There is, I'm not condoning the comments. I can tell you that there is, whenever you have different goals for different schools based upon the makeup of those schools, it is not unreasonable to me that people come to the conclusions that one school is better than another, or that one school is, the students in one school are less capable than another. That's the case. That is what happened. We had different goals for different buildings. Whenever we as a district put different goals on different buildings because of the kids that make it up, the taxpayers are gonna draw assumptions from that, and that's why we need to go back to that return on investment. Every school should have high standards, and those standards should not differ simply because of the students that are in a building or what side of town that building is on.
Erica, same question.
As a mother of a 7th grader at one of those buildings, I was truly appalled to read some of the comments that were provided in that article. It is disheartening to hear what some of our community members feel about some of our schools. And I would say that if I'm elected, I would try very hard to help individuals across our community that may have a false perception of any of our schools to either tour or get some type of firsthand experience in visiting those schools to help them really see that what their beliefs are and their thoughts are, for the most part, incorrect. Now, not all of the comments were false, but I was very taken aback by the East Side District comments, particularly. I think, though, it does show that we have more work to do in proving to our community that we're using their taxpayer dollars wisely across all of our buildings, all 18 schools, and making them all be just as equal and have the best quality, and educators and staff, students, all around.
Thank you. Mark, same question.
So for parents, their children are the most important things in their lives. And education is one of the most important components of what they go through. And you can understand that there may be trepidation from parents when they see that some schools simply don't perform as well as other schools do, and that their children may end up going to those schools. It's not to condone the comments towards the individuals or the persons. All students have the ability to succeed. All students and all children are a wonderful gift, and we should take value in all of them. The concern is the quality of the education in the various schools. And as I said at the end of my last question, or my last answer to the last question, if we have excellent schools across the board, if every elementary school is hitting it out of the park on their test scores, on their student involvement, if they're doing it across the board, parents don't have a concern about what school they go to because they know they're going to get an excellent education at every school. It's when some schools deliver an excellent education and some schools do not, and we hold them to different standards, that parents are necessarily concerned about what the impact on their child may be. We have to strive for excellence across the board. When I was in school, the slogan at Jefferson City High School was pride through excellence. We need to have pride in our district again, and the way to do that is to have excellence. And if you have excellence, then determining where kids go to school becomes a exercise in joy and happiness, because they know no matter where they're going to go, they're going to get the best experience anywhere in the state.
Ann, same question.
Yeah, just as Mark said, our children are the most important things in our lives as parents. And, their education is one of the most important things to us. So we're very concerned about where our students go to school. And I am on the other side of that, as my daughter goes to one of the schools that was referred to negatively in those articles. She goes to Thorpe Gordon and is one of those East Side schools and is one of those kids. And, the negative comments are not just about the kids in the school, they're about the teachers in the school, they're about the facilities themselves. My daughter is at a school that is one of 2 left that doesn't have air conditioning. She goes to a school where she can look out the window of her classroom and see a multi-million-dollar athletic center being built in a room where she wears a coat in the winter because it's so cold in her classroom. and doesn't have air conditioning when it's hot. This is why there are haves and have-nots, and this is why measuring it out by socioeconomic standards matters. We can't, I mean, yes, I want all of our schools to be schools that we are proud of, but we're not doing that. I'm super proud of Thorpe Gordon. Her principal is here. I'm super proud of her. She is just an unbelievable educator. I want everyone to understand that we have to make societal changes to make sure that we are looking at this more than just a school issue. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. All right, our next question will go with Erica. Critical race theory is a framework used to analyze the role of systemic racism in our society. One side claims that teaching about oppressive events in American history teaches children that some people are inherently oppressed and that others are inherently oppressors. The other side of the debate claims that censoring American history is racist. Is it ever appropriate to censor an age-appropriate lesson on the uncomfortable facts of American history or the perspectives and experiences of historical figures?
The Jefferson City School District adheres by the curriculum that our Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education sets for them. I believe that we do a pretty good job at trusting our teachers to teach within that curriculum, especially having our instructional coaches in every single building. I will say that each of our classes should be age appropriate, but CRT is not being taught here. It's a non-issue. It's not something that we're doing. You speak with teachers across the district, a lot of them didn't even know what it was when it became a very healthy topic across our state and the nation. Knowing that our teachers aren't involved in anything related to CRT from the K through 12 level tells me that we're doing a really good job of keeping to the curriculum and trusting our teachers to deliver what those parameters are. Now, I would say we need to do better in our outcomes in making sure that our reading and writing specifically improves. I would, there was a second part of your question now and I'm forgetting it.
Is it ever appropriate to censor an age-appropriate lesson on the uncomfortable facts of American history or the perspectives and experiences of historical figures?
I think we're doing that. We are sticking to the curriculum, and that allows for age appropriateness within every single one of our classrooms.
Okay, Mark, same question.
Well, first of all, I think we should teach our history. It's got great things. We're the greatest country in the world. It's got bad things. We have some really dark aspects of our history. We need to teach all of that. What we cannot do is teach that by virtue of someone's skin color or someone's religion or someone's ethnicity, that they're inherently better or worse than someone else. That constitutes division. That's how we divide our country. That's how we stop being the greatest nation on the planet. We don't want to divide our community. We want everybody to be involved. When we start talking about critical race theory, and let's be very clear, that's a buzzword, the term critical race theory. There are all sorts of other terms that are used that mean the same thing. We talk about equity in education. We don't talk about equality in education. We talk about equity in education. It means the same thing. It means saying that we're not all equal, we're not all God-given with gifts and the opportunity to rise to our level and succeed with hard work. It means that we're teaching in our classrooms, in elementary schools here in Jefferson City, and we've seen the documents of it. We're teaching and putting kids in situations where they have to talk about being second-class citizens solely based on their skin color. That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to occur in a school district because division is unacceptable. We have ugly history with respect to racism. American racism is very unique. We're the only country in the world where the folks that were the oppressors fought a war to free the folks that were subjugated. It's never happened anywhere else. But it's an ugly history. The history of what was done in the South is an ugly history. The things that are done in Jefferson City over many years is an ugly history. We should teach that. I think that's really good. We should not teach anyone that because of your skin color, you're a better person or a worse person.
Ann, same question.
I believe the question is, can you just repeat the question for me?
Is it ever appropriate to censor an age-appropriate lesson on the uncomfortable facts of American history or the perspectives and experiences of historical figures?
No, it is not appropriate to censor an age-appropriate lesson. I think that what we need to do is, yes, we need to teach an accurate history. I think including perspectives more than the one perspective that we've been teaching through all of history is probably valuable. We've been teaching one single perspective for a long time, and it would be good to get other perspectives. I don't think anyone is teaching that anyone is better or worse based on their skin color. I think that equity and equality are different. Those are not the same thing. But I think as long as lessons are age appropriate, I know that CRT is not being taught in Jefferson City, so I am comfortable with how Jefferson City Public Schools is following the state curriculum, and the board has done a good job of setting policy to make sure that everything is staying above board.
All right. Adam, same question.
I believe that we should teach American history, warts and all. Absolutely. We have a wonderful country. Our history is not always great, but it is the greatest country in the world, and we should teach every aspect of it. I do not believe that anyone is inherently oppressed or inherently oppressive. A teacher should not be teaching that in a classroom. To teach that tells one segment of students that, you know what, it doesn't matter if you make good decisions and work hard, you're doomed to a certain status. Vice versa, it tells the other group of students that, you know what, you don't have to do that much because your cake's already made and you just got to go on. I disagree with that vehemently. A student's potential is limited only by the amount of work they're willing to put in and the decisions that they make. I've heard it here, and I've heard it in every group that I've talked to. CRT is not being taught in Jefferson City school districts. Okay, if it's not, that's fantastic. However, how do we know that? From teachers? From students? I hear that, in fact, tenets of it are being taught. So part of the role of the board, as the board, that board members have, is going to be a supervision board. And to know what's going on in those classrooms, you've got to spend time in there. You've got to spend time in the buildings. It's not a gotcha or anything like that, but we have to know, as board members, we have to know what is going on in those buildings. We need to sit in on classrooms. We need to observe teachers. We need to tell them that they're doing a great job. We need to understand what principals are doing, what challenges they face, whether it be heating or air conditioning or any of those things. But supervision is a critical element that, in a critical role that the board plays, and that's not unique to this topic either. Again, if CRT or tenets of it are not being taught in the district, that's wonderful. But if they are, we need to understand that, and we need to figure it out.
All right. Mark, next question. If elected, would you propose a vote to allow people to bring an issue or question to the board publicly, even though it's not on the board agenda, which is the policy at this time? And explain your answer.
Absolutely and unequivocally yes. That's the most important thing that elected bodies do. They get feedback from citizens. Nothing could be more important. When I was on the county commission, we never censored who got to speak on a topic based upon what we wanted to hear. We always wanted to have open topics. We put cameras into the commission chambers. Ultimately, the way school board members learn and the way the community has trust is if they know that if there's an issue, it's going to be brought in public, it's going to be discussed in public, and it's going to at least have the attention shown upon it. When we limit discussion to what the body determines is the only appropriate issue to talk about, we eliminate the ability for new issues to be brought in front of the board. it's important for parents, it's important for community members to talk to teachers, to talk to administrators. But it's most important to remember that we are the elected officials. We are the elected representatives of the citizens. No one else is. And as a result, we need to always be open to know what's going on, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. Always need to know what's going on. And as a result, not only would I say we should have open dialogue in the school board meetings, we should always make sure that's the first item on the agenda. It's publicly covered, it's televised, and everybody can see it. And I think we should limit as much as possible to doing things behind closed doors. We want it in the open. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, is what was once said. And I think if the school board does the bulk, if not all of its business with discussion, normal order of business in open session, we'll institute transparency and we'll institute confidence in our school board.
All right. Ann, same question.
I agree. I would also like to see a true open forum brought to board meetings. I would like to see time limited, just like the open forum they have now, but that is limited to agenda items. I would like to see community members be able to come to a board meeting, talk for 3 minutes about anything they want to discuss with the board. Obviously not student names, not teacher issues, not personnel issues, just like anything else, not specific anyway. But yes, how else can the board know where the issues are if no one tells us? Yes, people can now request that something get on the agenda, but you know, I don't know how long that process is. It would be better to hear it directly from the person when they're saying it right away. I would support that absolutely. I don't have any issue with that at all.
Thank you. Adam, same question.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, absolutely. The Sunshine Law wasn't passed as a creative exercise for school boards to figure out how to tailor an agenda and craft an agenda in such a way to minimize citizen input. It's not a shield. It's not designed to protect and minimize what the district should be doing in public. And so I won't say this is the #1 issue that I hear about, but this is certainly a top 3. The heartburn that taxpayers have over the fact that, look, I am investing in this district. And it takes, it's almost like you have to stand on your left foot, the sun's got to be at a certain spot, and it's got to be the right Monday of the month in order to get on the agenda, and that's ridiculous. That's not the way that things are supposed to be, but that's certainly the perception that is out there. And so we need to fix that. And I'm glad to have discussions for anything. We need to provide public input. I think that we should video things. You cannot have too much public input.
Thank you. Erica, same question.
Allowing parents and guardians to be heard is a priority. I think providing a greater access at the building level could be a really great start for some of that communication, making our families, our parents and guardians feel comfortable speaking with their teachers, their educators, their counselors, their building principals, and then determining if something needs to be moved to the board, then that could be possible. But I think making sure the proper channels are taken first at the building level will help improve all around communication between students, parents, and educators.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to begin our closing statements, and we'll begin with Ann.
Okay, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the News Tribune for hosting us. Thanks to the council for letting us use the chamber. I just want to say that this has been quite an experience. I do think it's worth noting that we have 4 people up here that are running for a volunteer position who I know we have all worked super hard. I know we don't all agree on everything, but I think it's really interesting that the first question we were asked tonight was our political affiliation. And I would say 9 out of 10 questions tonight, we had the same answer. We're really not that different when it comes down to what we all truly care about, and it's the same thing as everyone in this room, is we care about the education of our children in Jeff City. We might disagree on some of the finer points, but really all any of us want is to make sure the kids in this town have the best possible education, that we have the best teachers, that we have the best schools, and that we have the best district in the state. And I hope that you vote for me on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Thank you, Gary. Educating students is the district's #1 priority, and it's what we have to focus on. And there is a delta that's out there, and that delta needs to be closed. Jefferson City is good when our public schools are good. Jefferson City is excellent whenever our public schools are excellent. There are wonderful teachers, wonderful students out there. We need to up that game all the way across the board. That starts with the board. That starts with the board and goes and filters down from there. I will, the last thing I'll say is that I don't know if it's evident here, but I tend to wear kind of my heart on my sleeve. I don't like to beat around the bush, and I hope I haven't given that impression that I have here, but that is who I am. And so some people might find that disagreeable. I understand that. I will bring that same characteristic to the board, though, whether that is in dealing with fellow board members, if the citizens of Jefferson City see fit to put me on the board, whether that's dealing with constituents. Some of you in here I've had conversations with, and we have very, very different views. I'm hopeful that all of you would be able to say, you know what, Adam said what he thinks, and he backs that up. And he's not afraid to articulate that. I'm not afraid to take a stand on a position. Here's the other thing. I'm also not afraid to say that I'm wrong, because my wife's told me 5 times a day that I'm wrong, and my parents are here. They'll probably tell me 2 more times. But I'm also not afraid to say that and to reassess. And so I'll bring that attitude to the board. Look, this is a privilege to be able to be on the ballot, and it would be an incredible privilege if the citizens of Jefferson City decide to put me on the board. But that's who I am, and that's what I'll bring to it. And I'll echo Ann's comments about if you see fit and if you agree with what I'm saying and my positions, I would certainly appreciate your vote on April the 5th. However, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's fine. I get it and I understand. And there's other people that you might align with. Vote for them. Just get out and vote.
Thank you. Erica, same question.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask for your vote on April 5th. I am a lifelong resident of Jefferson City, and as a mother of 2 boys that currently attend JC's schools, I care deeply about all youth in this community. They are our future leaders, our future neighbors, and I want to continue helping improve the outcomes for each and every one of them. After terming off of the JC Schools Foundation board, I am not ready to just stop helping. And so I would ask you to consider me as your next JC Schools board member so that I can continue using my passion to help this great community and all of our students and educators across our district. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark?
Thank you, Gary. Thank you to Lane and to Anna for the coverage that the News Tribune's done. Thank you to the other media that are here and the folks that are watching and everybody that's come to the room. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak to each of you. You know, my name's Mark Ellinger. I said it at the beginning, I'll say it at the end once again. I grew up in this community. My kids grew up in this community. Whether I was coaching baseball, which all these kids know me as coach that are getting older now, or whether it was being involved in the PTO at West Elementary School, or with my wife at Thomas Jefferson, or being involved in football, everything we've done has always been to improve this community. I spent 8 years as presiding commissioner, a job that took away from my main practice of law because I wanted to make our community better. We built a jail. We promised we'd do it. We did it. We promised that we would take care of the ambulance system. We took care of the ambulance system. We promised we'd lower property taxes. We lowered property taxes. And by the way, I promised I'd only do 2 terms, and when I was done, I would leave, and I did that too. I'm here today because our community needs excellence in education if we are to grow and thrive and survive. I've got a track record of delivering on my promises. If you favor me with your vote on April 5th, we're going to bring transparency back to the school boardroom. We're going to bring discipline to the classroom. We're going to get great teachers, great pay, and the result is we're going to have the best school district in the state of Missouri. That's always the goal. The best. Anything else than the best is a secondary goal. The best is what we should strive for. We should strive for it every day. And I believe that if you support me and vote on April 5th for Mark Ellinger for the school board, we can make that progress and deliver results once again. Thank you.
On behalf of the News Tribune, I want to thank all 4 of you for participating in the forum. I'd also like to thank the city for their assistance in helping us put this on. In addition to stories about the forum that's going to be in tomorrow's News Tribune, we'll have a variety of other means by which you, the listener, can become more informed about these races. We'll be asking these candidates questions that we didn't get to tonight, and those answers will appear in upcoming issues of the News Tribune. You can also submit questions still for sending us an email, by sending us an email to vote@newstribune.com. And again, they have been gracious to answer those questions. And as we discussed before the forum, the idea behind all of this is we want to give readers the opportunity to know who they're electing, and that you have an opportunity to really share your vision for what you want for this school district. At each of these forums, I'm always reminded of this idea that our society is best served by an informed and active electorate. I would encourage you who are listening to this to take advantage of these resources that we're offering, to listen to what these candidates have to say, and then get out and vote on April 5th. Again, candidates, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Nicely done.